Hi, my name is Robin Constantine, and I'm here today on the OneFour KidLit channel to talk about the inspiration behind my novel, The Promise of Amazing, which will be released by Balzer Bray in 2014. The book is told from a dual point of view, and there's very different inspirations for both characters. So I'm going to talk about what inspired me for each character first. Wren Caswell is my female protagonist. She's 16 and she's a junior, and the book opens up with her guidance counselor telling her English class that none of you are going to Harvard. And this is actually something that happened to me. And I remember at the time being really annoyed that a guidance counselor would begin some kind of inspirational speech by telling us what we couldn't do. And now, as an adult, maybe I kind of get where she was coming from, but at the time it just felt like we were being talked down to. Um, but it wasn't anything that stopped me from looking for things that I wanted to do. But years later, when I was in jury duty, which incidentally is an awesome place to write, I started thinking about that again. None of you were going to Harvard, and Wren's character started talking to me, and I just jotted down what turns out to be some of the first lines of this story. So I guess essentially what was very uninspirational to me at the time, I turned into something that inspired me and was really a springboard for Wren's journey throughout the rest of the novel. Grayson Barrett is my male protagonist, and he's 17 and he's a senior and he goes to a completely different school than Wren. And his part of the story was inspired by a lot of things. Grayson actually was a secondary character in another novel that I'd been writing. And anytime he would show up on the page, it was just so much fun to write. He just had the best lines, and I kept wanting to put my main character with him, except that was not the way the plot was supposed to go. So, but I just loved him, and he kept getting bigger and bigger. And I ended up having to shelve that project, but when I started writing Wren's story, I thought, well, I am taking this guy and he's coming into the story, and it was great from the moment they were on the page. It was just this great kind of back and forth. Another part of Grayson's story, which might give you a little bit more insight into what some of the novel is about, was inspired by my move. I'm from this small urban town in New Jersey, and it was the kind of place where the houses are really close together and everybody knows everybody's business, and generation after generation lives there. And it was a really nice place to grow up. And one of the things that I found out later is that it has this reputation for being this really tough town. And I found that laughable because I never knew that. I never felt unsafe when I grew up. And I never knew I lived in some neighborhood that was considered so rough. So when the time came and we decided we wanted to move, I did a lot of research into the area that we were looking in, and we fell in love with this like beautiful sprawling green suburbia. And when I did the research, I was really kind of shocked to find that the biggest piece of the crime pie was home invasion. And, those are just not two words you want to hear together. So when I asked my realtor what that meant, she went on to say that yes, that happens, but it's not random. It's usually more in these rashes, these kind of crime sprees. And she went on to tell me the story of this group of high school kids who would go to these open air malls around where we live, and they'd go into cars and they'd get these garage door openers, and they would get the address off the registration, and they would go to the person's home while they were still out, and they would rob them. And so I thought three things when she told me that story. The first one was that I am never leaving my garage door opener in my car. Two, like that was thought out. It wasn't just some random beginning. It wasn't like breaking a window and you're grabbing something. There's a thought process there. And the third thing I thought was that would make a really good story, but it was really nothing that I was interested in writing at the time. I'd been writing kind of this like fun beach read, and I just didn't think I would could handle a crime element in the story. So I just kind of tucked it away in the back of my head. And so again, when the time came and all these elements, I put all these elements together, that was almost like a missing piece of the puzzle. And the story just kind of grew out of there. So I guess what I would take away from this is that, inspiration is such a dramatic word. It sounds like, the heavens should open up and a light should come down and, your idea should be like delivered to you and on angels' wings and stuff. And maybe that happens for some people. But I think for me, the inspiration comes in the most mundane ways. I mean, I certainly never thought I would get a story idea out of house hunting. And, I think that's the really cool part, is that inspiration can strike at any moment as long as you keep your eyes open and your ears open and you listen and you pay attention. So thank you for listening to my inspiration.